Okay.
All
I'm
right.
back. Excuse me for
We
the
found you.
tardiness.
We will start again. Welcome to our very special Zazenkai with the great, and may I say that, the great Edward Espe Brown. I'm sure he would not like me to say this, but uh, when we have such a teacher as Ed here, we also have a lot of history with us. As you can see, the picture of Suzuki Roshi is with us today, and that is not just a picture. When Ed is with us, the lineage he represents is with us. He was ordained by Suzuki Roshi. He received Dharma transmission from Mel Weitzman, who is, how old is Mel now? About 83, 84?
I think he's 85 now.
85.
I think so.
Okay.
And still sitting after all these years.
And still
on the
teaching.
floor on a cushion.
I just want to say thank you so much, Ed, for being here with us. He's also in the San Francisco area. I think you know that Ed is known as the Tenzo. Um, Much of his teaching centers around his cooking practice and his many books. His new book is No Recipe, Cooking as a Spiritual Practice. He's also the author of the Tassajara bread book and several other books we've introduced. And yep, there it is. And without further ado, I would just like to thank you and introduce you. Hello, Ed.
It's hard, here I could say I have a few students, friends here. I can say good morning to them, but then I don't know, so as it might apply.
Well, we have one fellow here from the Ukraine who's with us. We have someone in Mexico, and we may have someone from Norway joining us in a bit. So we're a bit scattered around.
Wonderful.
Let me just encourage you, because of the microphone, do speak loudly so we can be sure to hear you.
Okay.
And before we sit a few minutes of Zazen, could I just ask you to just say hello to everybody?
Yes, certainly. You mean like a few words of hello?
Yeah, just a few words of hi.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. I've never done it before, so I'm delighted to try out meeting people internet-wise. So I'm very pleased that we figured this out, and nice to see you all. You're tiny.
I can make it bigger. That's Kyoto, New Mexico. Hi, Randy. Ron's there. That's Washington. He's in the Ukraine. Hi, Todd. Not sure where you are, Todd. And Jakudez. Hi, guys. So this is a lot like cooking, Ed. We don't know what's going to happen. You put something in the oven, it either rises or it falls, but let's see what happens today.
Yes, we will. We will see what happens.
We're going to sit about 25 minutes of Zazen. I'll ring the bell and just sit where you are.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Before I turn things over to Brown Roshi, I just want to say I'm a little concerned about the sound. So if anyone has difficulty, do the ear pointing thing, and I'll try to get Brown Roshi to move right close to the microphone. Also, we do have one open seat. If there's someone on the waiting list who would like to come in, now's your chance. First come, first serve. Without further ado, I turn the kitchen over to Chef Brown.
Good morning. Good day. Good day. Good evening. I think this is the first I've been called Brown Roshi. You know, I do have a Buddhist name too, Jusan Kaine. The Kaine is Peaceful Sea. So my group is called the Peaceful Sea Sangha. The Jusan is Longevity Mountain. Suzuki Roshi told me, you will be like a mountain surrounded by a sea of peaceful people. So thank you, Sea, for being here today. My zendo here is called Yo Shinji, and that's for Nourished Heart Zen Temple. And my aim is to, you know, for us to meet in our hearts. And in that sense, I appreciate Dogen's expression, let things come and abide in your heart. Let your heart return and abide in things. You know, it's not our usual way in the Western world, which is more involved with, you know, how to be masterful and how to, you know, have things do what you tell them and how to create a good picture or image, you know, that will sell, so to speak. So this backward step that we take in Zazen to turn the light inward is, you know, more about, more to do with letting things touch our heart and understanding how to put our heart into our life. So in that sense, I appreciate it very much, you know, saying on, you know, one of Jundo's website things, you know, everyday life, life in the world is the temple. I appreciate this very much, and this is my feeling about cooking or any moment of our life when we can be in touch with our heart, let things touch our heart, and have our heart go out into our activity, into our expression, into the world in various ways. Pretty sweet. So I wanted to tell you some stories today. Most of them are in my book. But it's fun to tell them firsthand. And so to start with, I want to tell you about when I first started making biscuits back a ways. It was probably, you know, 1966 or 67, I tried making biscuits. And my biscuits didn't come out right. So I decided to try making them with water instead of with milk. They still didn't come out right. So I thought, well, maybe the problem is that I have eggs in the biscuits and I should leave the eggs out. So I tried making the biscuits without the eggs. They didn't come out right. Then I tried, I thought, well, maybe it's the butter. Maybe I should make them with Crisco. So I made biscuits with Crisco. They still didn't come out right. So about this time, I started, it occurred to me, you know, right compared to what? And I realized, oh, I grew up with Bisquick biscuits and Pillsbury biscuits, and my biscuits didn't taste like manufactured biscuits. So, and you know, the Bisquick biscuits, you took the mix out of the box and put it in the bowl, and then you stirred in milk. And then you just, with a fork, and then you didn't even roll out the dough. You just took you took your fork and then picked up a scoop of the dough and slapped it onto the pan. Blop, I say blop it onto the pan. And the Pillsbury biscuits, of course, you bang the can on the corner of the counter and then you twisted it open, you took out the biscuits and put them on the pan. You didn't need to grease the pan in either case. And then you bake them. And in my world, those were biscuits. So then I thought, oh my, why don't I taste the biscuits of today? So then I made these biscuits again that had butter and milk and eggs. And there's a technique to them of rolling out the dough. It's in my first book, flaky high-rise biscuits. And then you fold the dough over, and so it becomes more and more layered. So I tasted the biscuits, and they were light and flaky. They melted in your mouth. They were ethereal. They were heavenly. They were also They were weedy and earthy. There was sun. They were sunny, earthy. In a poem by Rilke, he says, the poem ends, dare to taste what apple truly is, this sweetness that feels thick, dark, dense at first, then exquisitely lifted in your taste goes clarified, awake, luminous, double-meaning, sunny, earthy, real. Oh, knowledge, pleasure, joy, immense. So this is my biscuits. The biscuits of today were like this. They were so alive. And then when you taste something that carefully today, then you also wake up. You become alive. Something has touched your heart. You've given your heart. You've allowed your heart to be touched, and your heart goes out to things. And then you feel this connection and warm-heartedness. And you've nourished your heart, and when you serve those biscuits to others, you nourish their heart. So over all these years, the more I think about it, the more I realize that, oh my gosh, so much in my life I've tried to make, the biscuits from yesterday. So pretty early on, I realized, I thought if I practiced Zen, I could grow up. Because people had always told me, don't be such a baby and grow up. And if I may, I will take a sidetrack here, a little tangential, but, I started associating this with, when I was little, my mom and dad used to call me Eddie Bear. So, not Brown Roshi, but Eddie Bear. And the Eddie Bear was not, it was one word, and no capital, because if you have a capital on the name, then it's somebody over there, and it's like, it's this object, it's this, you've already turned into an object. And, but Eddie Bear is closer than close. And so one of the, the most lovable, adorable person you could ever, hope to be. And not at all distant or, big, but just completely lovable. But then, of course, when mom and dad are upset, they would say, Edward Bear, your room is a mess. You've got to clean it up. And you're talking too much. You've got to quiet down. Shut up. Don't talk so much. Don't sing. Don't laugh. Stop that. So then you start to wonder, I started to wonder, well, what happened to Eddie Bear? This sweetheart. I'm actually a sweetheart, and nobody seems to know. And they're telling me to grow up and shape up. And, and then if you get to, and then I thought, well, if I practice Zen, then surely this will help me to become this Eddie Bear person. Well, it doesn't, then it's just like, no, then you need to this and you need to that, and you should. That's no way to chant. And then you can never do it well enough, to actually become something. All along, you're just a sweetheart. And anyway, so when it came to making the biscuits of today, then I realized I've been trying to make an Edward or a Jusan Kaine or a Zen person or a grown up. I will become spiritual. And then if I become spiritual enough, surely people will love me. But all those things I could become, they never said, oh, thank you. It's so sweet of you to be like that and to do those things. And wow, I feel my own preciousness when I look at you. People don't say that. They just say, not good enough. And of course, if you're involved in performance like this, then you're of course even a brief success. And then people say, you're only as good as your last performance. It needs to be better tomorrow. So the problem with trying to grow up and stop being a baby was, and then you start examining yourself. Am I grown up enough? I start, and then I start thinking like, what do I need to do to be more grown up? And then every time I was, something would happen and I would be upset or people would be upset with me. And no, baby again, I need to grow up. And then the more I found out that I was like a baby, the more I was like a baby and I behaved like a baby. So it helped to try to grow up. And at some point I had to, with my own life, start tasting the biscuits of today, which is just, practice, of course, but tasting the biscuits of today, tasting, my sensations, thoughts, feelings, and I came across a wonderful saying by Tenkei, the Zen master Tenkei. I think he's 17th century or something, 18th century Japan. And he said, see with your eyes, smell with your nose, taste with your tongue. Nothing in the universe is hidden. What else would you have me say? And of course, what you want him to say is, tell me how to make it the way it should be. Tell me how to make a masterpiece, how to make myself into a masterpiece, how to make myself into, a grown-up, how to make the biscuits the way they should be. How do I do that? And of course he says, there's not enough milk and sugar in the universe. And this is an upside down idea to try to make things according to some old recipe, according to some old picture of your life that you are carrying along with you and trying to bring into reality. So this is, of course, leading to the story. When we are, she was there, and we've been eating outside. And the first practice period in 1967 was July and August. Since then, we stopped having practice periods in the heat of summer, and we have them in the fall and in the winter. The fall, yeah, and then winter, spring. So when we first started out, we hadn't been eating in the Zendo. In the first Zendo, we'd been used to, if you sit at a picnic table and you have 6 or 8 people sitting at the table, then you can have, milk and sugar on the table for everybody to share. And we used to serve milk, and we might have even served half and half. And then some people said, oh, but we like canned milk. We should be able to have canned milk. And we had white sugar, and then some people said, well, white sugar is bad for you. We should have brown sugar. And then some people didn't want white sugar or brown sugar, so we had honey. And then there were people who said, well, we want molasses. So this is our world, have it your way. Now it's even a slogan for McDonald's or Burger King or something, Wendy's, have it your way. And a friend of mine, actually one of my sometime students, just went to a coffee shop, and he said it was so bright and light and sterile feeling. And then there wasn't just a choice of the usual 13 or 15 or 20 drinks, there was 50. And you could have, and then there was a choice of milk, and 1%, no fat milk, 1% milk, 2% milk, half and half, cream, and then almond milk, soy milk, hazelnut, oat, any kind of milk you wanted. And then you had to tell them what you wanted. And he was overwhelmed by the choices. When we went to eat in the Zendo for the first time in the Zendo, and we were trying to pass, then the condiments down the row, and we had a tray with 5 or 6 little pitchers and dishes of the milk and sugar, and this is before, soy and almond, and this is just dairy. And before, it's only gotten worse, And we tried passing it down the row, and then it just took forever for the condiments to pass down the row. So then we thought, well, we need more trays of condiments. So then we had more trays of condiments, and we'd come in before the meal and put them down, and we had a tray of condiments then for every 3 people. So 40 or 50 little dishes of sugar and cream and honey. And well, after 2 or 3 mornings of this, I was back in the kitchen, and we heard that Suzuki Roshi wanted to talk to us, wanted to give a lecture. So he started talking, and he said, I don't understand you Americans. When you put so much milk and sugar on your cereal, how will you taste the true spirit of the grain? And it just had never occurred to me that there was such a thing, that you could taste the true spirit. Don't you just make everything taste the way you want it to? The way it's supposed to be, the way it should be, the way you want it to be? Don't you just make it taste that way? And then then I was thinking this, and then he said, what do you think? At each moment of your life, you just put on milk and sugar, so it's the way you want it? He said, I don't think you can do that. Why don't you taste the true spirit of the grain? Why don't you taste your own true spirit? Why don't you taste the true spirit of the people, your friends, of the people practicing with you? Why don't you taste things as they, and he used to say, instead of things as they are, he would say, why don't you taste things as it is? It was a little playful, things as it is. We went back into the kitchen after that, and we rejoiced that we didn't have to serve all these little dishes of condiments. And we decided then we would only serve gamashio, toasted sesame seed ground with salt. And for a long time, we made it by hand with suribachi and ceramic bowl and big wooden pestle. And then eventually we used devices. We used for a long time a kind of a grain grinder that's kind of like a meat grinder, but it grinds. But anyway, and now they might use Cuisinarts or something. You just toss it. But this is again, why don't you taste the true spirit? And when we taste things carefully or experience anything carefully, it's our own preciousness, our own goodness that we taste. And it's our goodness, the goodness of life and the goodness of our friends. And we're tasting, the heart of something. And when we taste and meet the heart of something, then we meet our own good heart. So it's, of course, interesting in that Zen, Zen, I tell the story in the book, Zen is interested in the world and how to act in the world, and also, how to see inwardly. So another one of the stories I put in my book is, my friend Gail Fronsdale, who's both a Vipassana teacher and a Zen teacher, and then his Zen teacher is the same as mine now, Mel Weitzman. And Gail, 1 year went to Japan for a month, and then went to Southeast Asia for 2 or 3 months to study Vipassana. And he said, wherever he went, everybody loved to rake as a temple activity. And he said, in Japan, they say, when you rake, just rake. And in Southeast Asia, they say, when you rake, watch your mind. So he said in Japan, when you rake, just rake. They're raking and raking and raking, and sometimes the dust is coming out. And other people have told me, when you rake like that, you have to rake with everybody else. You have to stay with the group. You don't go off raking somewhere else where there might be more leaves to rake. You have to just stay. You just stay with everybody. Because you don't try to do more or less. Just rake. And that's what Suzuki Roshi told me about cooking. When you wash the rice, wash the rice. When you cut the carrots, cut the carrots. When you stir the soup, stir the soup. And in Southeast Asia, he said they just stand there with the rake in their hand. So I'm busy watching their mind. And I told that to Mel, and Mel said, when they just stand there like that, they must still be thinking their minds are up here. And so this is an interesting point, of course, where in Zen, everything is mind. And it's another way of saying, let things come home to your heart, let your heart go out. And we're learning how to relate with things both as though they're in the outer world and also how they're in our inner world, and how to connect our inner world, our inner life with this outer world. How do we make that connection? And how do we share, all part of one mind, so to speak, or good heart, same heart, and we connect, we learn how to connect with things. And so it's wonderful to hear, like when I read Jungo's emails and people are, doing chaplaincy and hospice and all kinds of work, connecting the heart with the world. So obviously cooking isn't the only way to do this. So one more story. This also then is to say, I called my book No Recipe. And there's no recipe for how to do this. For each of us studying. And we start out, in our life, it's important, how do we fit in to the culture, into our family? How do we talk? How do we walk? How do we behave? So that we fit in and that we're part of the society. And of course, to do that, just like little Eddie Bear had to abandon parts of himself, we each have to abandon parts of ourselves in order to fit in. And to not be too loud or too outspoken or, And sometimes as a child, all you need to do is say, mommy, mommy. And if mommy's busy, mommy might say, stop being so obnoxious. Asking for mommy's attention was being obnoxious. And you learn not to ask for anybody's attention because you don't deserve it. You don't deserve attention. You don't deserve being seen. You don't really deserve being heard. You should disappear. Or if you appear at all, then that's called obnoxious. So this kind of thing we learn growing up. And then we abandon parts of ourselves that are looking to be seen, recognized, met. So in Zen, of course, it's an important piece to live with the teacher, meet face to face, and be willing to be seen, to see and be seen, to met, And I first had to learn to do this. It's scary to do this with people. I learned to do this first with food. The radish. I can share myself with the radish, and then I look, and then the radish is so orange and plump and crunchy, and the radish isn't worried about not being an eggplant, or why can't I be more like those? It's just sincerely what it is, and it's willing to be like that, without comparison to anything, and there's no recipe and there's no picture how it should be. and it's manifesting, expressing itself. And so each ingredient is like each of us is, can we be heard? Can we be recognized? Can we be met? Are we willing to be? And from something inside. And this is a big shift in our life from performing the way that we've learned to perform so that we fit in. And to do that, we've abandoned ourselves. And then how do we go inside and find that there's a freedom and a spaciousness that we come out into the world and manifest in remembering ways that we share ourselves with the world. And then maybe we start, to paint or to play music or to cook. We start to spend more time with our family and friends. And we start to be willing to be seen and met. And this person, that it's a little bit challenging, we're in that case vulnerable because we're not, it's not ourselves as the picture of, beyond reproach, beyond judgment, just who we are. We, we don't know what the world will do, or how the world will see us. And we're going to just be who we are, what we are, just like the biscuits. And then sometimes there'll be people who appreciate that. Once in a while. It's good to have some friends, some other fellow students of the Dharma. Or sometimes the world is pretty reliable. My Dharma is pretty reliable. So one last story, when I was, even before the condiments and breakfast, when I first got to Tassajara that year, and since then had asked me to be the cook, I was 21 or 22. And the students who were already working in the kitchen, they said, "We don't use salt here at Tassajara." I said, "You don't use salt? Why not?" They said, "Salt is bad for you, I said, "How? Like bad? How?" "Well, salt is bad for you." Like, no, I don't know. But it's still like this, of course, but in the 60s, it was like this. Sugar is bad for you. One thing or another is bad for you. Who knows? I don't keep up. So I said to Suzuki, "What am I going to do?" I didn't know. Do I just go along and not use salt? Or do I say, "I don't care what you say, I'm going to use salt"? So I went in to ask, the local spiritual authority, what is his advice? And he said to me, "Ed, you're the cook. You do what you want." So this is very interesting, to be shifting from how can I behave in the way that the world wants to how do I behave on my own authority, doing what I want. And my own authority is also known as, my heart. It's also known as my felt sense, my own aesthetic. How can I behave, from my own goodness, from my own heart, from my own aesthetic? And I'm cultivating that too, how to understand things more and more, what is, my offering, what am I here to offer, to share, to with everyone. That's my gift. It's my blessing, my love. And how can I make my love, my heart, my inside, how can I make manifest? It's very much in keeping with Zen, even though so much of Zen is involved with do this and don't do that. And, um, and it goes along, by the way, then just to finish up here, but with Suzuki Roshi's teaching, he used to say we do formal practice with informal feeling. There's the difference between people doing serious cultural and Zazen, it's formal and it's your hands are where they are you say, and then but it's soft. There's a soft feeling. That's the feeling on the inside. Your soft feeling. So this is again, mostly we get confused between how you behave in the world, so that you're beyond reproach or reprimand. You can be judged accordingly, and then how are you inside? And mostly, of course, when people do formal practice with formal feeling, what's going on inside? They don't know. You don't know. You're busy doing the form, and um, and then they say that's Zen. And I don't think so, but do what you want. And see what you can find out, and go from there and find out something else. Start someplace. Okay. Anyway, much for being here at these various times of day and night. I appreciate this opportunity, and thank all of my venerable friends here, students who come this morning to be with me here. And I think we have time for some questions, answers, time period.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And
And
I'm going to ask the people here, if you have a question, don't be shy, raise your hand. We have people at home who are watching, and if they want to write me a question at my email, jundotreeleaf@gmail.com, I'll try to ask a few questions from folks at home. Who has a question or a comment? Don't be shy. Kyonin.
Hi, Sensei. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Mexican, and I am made of tacos and food, and cooking is part of our culture in a huge way. And I just want to thank you for your inspiration and to spend some time with us because cooking and Zen are pretty much alike because we nourish ourselves, we nourish our families, and we take care of everyone around us by just shutting our minds and focusing on preparing our meals. So for me, your books and your documentary have been a great inspiration. So I don't have a question per se, but just wanted to express my gratitude for all you teach to us in all over the world. Thank you.
If I may say, you have a beautiful face, a beautiful smile. I appreciate your sharing your smile with us. Thank you. I'm trying to learn how to smile a little more. I get sad and glum. So I want to. I aspire to smile more.
Another question from one of our smiling people.
Oh, I don't feel like smiling.
Yeah, sing it.
first of all, again, yes, thank you for being here. It's lovely, lovely talk. I was wondering, I really liked your analogy, first of all, with the condiments. That was actually wonderful. But I also liked at the very end when you were talking about finding that kind of place in between, being kind of disruptive and not being disruptive, and finding that balance. And one of the things that I see, I have a local sitting group, and it's interesting the challenge that I find sometimes with leading that group is how do you find that common place? So not having too many condiments, not kind of trying to meet everybody's individualistic needs, but trying to have a common place that you can still kind of share and grow together. Because sometimes I find that really challenging, because sometimes you get caught into all these different narratives or these different condiments. I was wondering if you can elaborate a bit on that.
what can I say? You know, I think life is messy. So, you know, the Suzuki Roshi's teaching, which is, you know, pretty basic, is, you know, if you find a good teaching, you know, follow it. So if you find something to do, you follow it. But he said, always be open to trying something else and to seeing, you know, see what you can find out. So, and essentially, then you keep trying different things over time, and notice if does this make sense? And so you're always you continue. You don't have a way that just works. In similar vein, we used to say. Oh, and by the way, I'm reminded of you know, the business of being between formal and, you know, a little bit lively or different or something. He used to say, Tassajara used to say, some of you are trying to be good Zen students. Why don't you be yourself? I'll get to know you better that way. So, you know, he made this distinction between being a good Zen student and being yourself. But you're in a Zen group, you know, there's a way we do things, because then it's harmonious, it's easy, it's flowing, it's smooth. We don't have to try to figure out, do we do this, do we do that, and then we're talking about it, and what's the right, and then people get involved in what's the right way to do it, and that's not right, and then you know, that's not what I want, and so on. So the nice thing about the forms, for instance, is then we can all come into the Zendo and we sit, and then you can have, and ironically, you know, people say Zen has so many forms and rituals, and Vipassana is so free. You know, we don't have to bow, we don't have to chant, you know, and we don't have to wear those funny clothes. But actually, in Vipassana, they tell you what to do in meditation. Note, practice noting, in, out, note, sensation, you know, note, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, come back to your breath, and you do this, and you do that, and then you do this, and if you have a Vipassana romance or Vipassana vendetta, you know, then note, pleasant, unpleasant, aversion, grasping, and so they're actually telling you what to do all the time. And then, but in Zen, because we have a few forms, we can then have the experience you have, but just outwardly follow the forms, and we can all have our own experience then. And we don't tell you what to do, and then you get to make it up. So how good is that? So partly this is also then something to do with, you know, teaching people to appreciate the form, and you know how we do things here. It's not that it's the right way; it's just how we're doing it here, so that we can practice harmoniously together and have your own experience, and you can like it or not. See what you can find out. Of course, you get to do what you want. You can respect that and whatever. So if you want to do that, you know, go practice Vipassana. I mean, it's okay. I'm still, by the way, burning incense here. Except for when one of my students comes, you know, and if she's here, then, you know, she always starts coughing and sneezing and wheezing. So we finally figured out it's the incense. So if Marie comes, no incense. Otherwise, I'm still burning incense. You know, Zen Center is offering flower petals, and because we don't want to, you know, we want to make it possible for everybody to practice. You know, Zen's not everything, you know. So, but anyway, it's a very interesting point. To have enough form that we can be together and have our own experience. And having our own experience is not the same as having the experience that you want to have. You know, the food the way you want to have it, etc. Having your own experience means You appreciate, you don't appreciate, you like it, you don't like it, you taste it carefully, you don't taste it carefully, you gobble, 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 or you don't know what to do with it, and so on, so you get to have your experience, and it doesn't mean, though, that it's the one that you come out the way you want. So we keep going. Thank you for bringing that up, sir.
Thank you for the answer. Thank you.
I have a question from someone at home, Catherine, who writes, first off, thank you, and she has one of the I'm not sure which of the Tassajara books, but she just asked, I have one question: vegetarianism? Yes, no. I guess she's asking if you have to be vegetarian to practice this way. What do you say?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a Suzuki Roshi story. It's one of the most well-known stories about him, and at least from my point of view, it's one of the most well-known. But one day, Suzuki Roshi went to town with one of the students from Tassajara. Tassajara is at least 2 hours from Carmel. It's about an hour to go over the 14-mile dirt road, up 3,000 feet, down 3,000 feet. You can't do it all year round, but a lot of the year we can. And then it's another hour, into Carmel. So a couple hours to get, and to do, to get to town to do some shopping, to buy groceries, And anyway, so he went into town, and the student was an avid vegetarian, and was and Tassajaras, of course, were eating vegetarian food, but still, he was outspoken about this is important that the world be vegetarian and so on. So, and Suzuki Roshi is following, the Zen, Japanese Zen, eat what you're served. And if you go out to a restaurant, order off the menu. If you're at somebody's house, eat what you serve, what you're served. Don't tell them you're vegan or vegetarian or something. Just let them serve you what they serve. And, if they ask, you can tell them. But if they're not asking, they're just offering you something, then you eat it. And the only advice that, he was following was in which is traditional Buddhist, if the meat is killed for you, then you shouldn't eat meat that's killed for you. Or you shouldn't have meat killed for you. But if you go to the restaurant, if you go to somebody's house, order off the menu, eat what you serve. So Suzuki Roshi was in town with his student. They did some shopping, and then Suzuki Roshi said, let's have lunch. Let's stop for lunch somewhere. So the student, being a vegetarian, he starts looking for where can I have a vegetarian lunch? And this is the 60s, There's not like there's little restaurants and things. So not so long after that, Suzuki Roshi said, let's eat there. And it was a diner. And so they went into the diner and they sat in a booth and across from each other. And they looked at the menu, and the student was very relieved. Finally, down the bottom of the menu, it said grilled cheese sandwich, which of course wouldn't have been possible if he was vegan, but in those days, just being vegetarian was okay. So that, oh great, I can have a grilled cheese sandwich. And Suzuki Roshi said, hamburger double meat. And then after a while, the food came, and they each took a bite. And Roshi said to the student, "How's your sandwich?" And the student said, "Oh, it's good. It's good. It's all right. Yeah, it's fine. It's good." And Roshi said, "I don't like mine. Let's switch." And he grabbed the plates and moved them. So then the student, it turned out, was a little more devoted to Suzuki Roshi than whether he ate meat or not. So to do what his teacher said, then he ate they had switched the food, so then he ended up eating a hamburger double meat. Anyway, you see, this never happens anymore. Now the students tell the teachers, you need to be vegan. You know, you can't do this. You know, you can't eat meat. You can't even be vegetarian. The students now tell the teachers. Teachers don't tell students anything anymore. You know? I'm sorry. You know, that's the way it is. That they explained this to me at the Zen Center. We can't tell the cooks anything. They're going to cook what they cook, and they know they're cooking the right thing when they cook vegan food. That's the right thing to have. Everybody should be vegan. This is saving the world, and you know, on and on. And but so nowadays, Suzuki Roshi is no longer with us, and the vegans will rule. As far as I can tell, I don't know. But so anyway, in my world, I was mostly vegetarian all those years at the Zen Center, 20 years. You know, eating at the Zen Center most of the time. So you eat the food that I was eating what's served, and so vegetarian. And then when you're on a sleep deprivation, Zen life, sleep deprivation and working hard, then you survive basically on sugar and caffeine. And then, you know, I don't know about other people, but where are the next plate of cookies and the next cup of coffee? And, you know, I would have 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee a day. And, you know, and when you have that much caffeine, after the 5th or 6th cup, you drink your coffee and you fall asleep immediately. You can't, it doesn't work. And then after a number of years, another 10, 15, 20 years outside of the Zen Center, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And one day I stopped at Marin Sun Farms where they have, you know, well-raised beef and meat. It's out in the pasture and, you know, no GMO and, you know, good feed and grass and, you know, whatever. And so then I bought some ground beef and it was so good. And then I felt so good. And then it turned out if I ate meat, I wasn't trying to snack all day long. So anyway. So I'm in the school of find out for yourself. You're the cook, and you listen to everybody and what they have to say, and then you try things for yourself and you see what works for you today. Not what works for you when you were 20 or 30, but what works for you today. And part of that for me is also that whatever you're eating, you give thanks.
All right, we're all going out for ribs and burgers after this. Anyone else have a question?
We're going in for some sticky buns and, you know, coffee. So we're going the other direction. Yes. Any more questions? Any questions here? We have a group here too.
Yeah.
Questions? Comments?
Okay. I have one from Matthew at home. He's saying, this is Matthew. I have a question for Reverend Brown. First, please thank him for joining us and sharing his understanding with us. Second, I'm wondering what he would say about what role, if any, fasting can play in our practice. Fasting.
Again, so I find it, you know, I think the basic principle here is, again, see what you can find out. So, you know, in a different vein from the story about Suzuki Roshi and the vegetarian and the switching the cheese, the grilled cheese with the meat, another student at Tassajara was only eating the food in the 3rd bowl. So it's like a kind of fasting, but it just, for the sake of the story, the student was only eating the 3rd bowl. And the other students would say, you know, you're supposed to eat what you're served. And you're supposed to take some of the food for each bowl. Or don't, like, it's mine out. The earliest tradition in Buddhism is, of course, to go out begging. If you go out begging, you don't say, I want this and I don't want that. You receive food. So he was eating it. And finally, Suzuki Roshi called him in and said, I hear you have an unusual eating practice in Zendo, and what's going on? And my friend said, I'm only eating the food in the third bowl. And Suzuki Roshi said, well, what's that about? And he said, I want to find out what happens if I only eat the food in the third bowl. The food in the third bowl was the most likely to be a salad or fruit. In other words, he was eating, it was like being vegan, you know, so he wasn't eating carbohydrates, or dairy, which were more likely to be in the first and second bowl. And Suzuki Roshi said, oh, that's great. You should always be finding out. You should always be seeing what you can find out. If he had said, well, I'm not eating carbohydrates, they're bad for you. I'm not eating dairy, that's not good. He didn't say that. He said, I'm going to see what I can find out. So I think fasting is, it's a wonderful practice. And again, it's good to do something like that, to see what you can find out rather than, have a gaining idea. All of Zen and Suzuki Roshi emphasize, set aside your gaining ideas and do, practice. See what you can find out. So coincidentally with all of that, I've weighed a little bit more than it's not that I mind being, having a belly. It's that I haven't, felt as energetic as I thought I would if I had weighed a little less. And finally, I thought, well, why don't I skip one meal a day? And I started losing weight. And then I found out this is called intermittent fasting. And this is actually an official plan. And there's people who are promoting it. And the interesting thing about the people promoting it is, and the idea is that if the longer you fast, and the simplest thing is to skip breakfast or breakfast and lunch and just eat lunch and dinner or dinner. And the longer you fast, then the more likely that your body uses up the sugar. And when your bloodstream no longer has insulin, then your body will start burning fat for energy, stored fat or energy, rather than trying to burn sugar for energy. So, and that has to do with the fasting. So then how long between meals. So I'm trying this out now. It's been a couple of months, and I've actually lost a little bit of weight, and I feel so much better. I feel more energy, and so I'm finding out things, and I'm also finding have all the little snacks around that I was snacking on. And I had already switched the snacks from cookies and crackers to nuts. And my diabetic friends say the best nuts are macadamia, so you should get macadamia nuts and so on. So anyway, I keep trying things out, finding out what I can find out. And by the way, just one other story about that. One of my students, Daniel Parker, who's actually listened to over 300 of my lectures and put together a book of talks. It's going to come out in 1 year, and that's called The Most Important Point. But Danny's son weighed over about my height, 5'8", 5'9", weighed over 300 pounds. And he couldn't figure out what to do with it. And finally he heard about this intermittent fasting, and he's only been eating dinner. And he's lost over 150, not 150, but over 125 pounds. So he's now weighs a little less than I do.
He's skinny.
But he has his energy, his vitality, and he has a kind of sense of himself and his capacity to make decisions and to know what he wants and what he doesn't want. That came from from his experience with fasting and not eating until dinner. Anyway, it's all pretty interesting. So, sure, see what you can find out.
We have another question from our people sitting here. Jacodan.
I sometimes wonder, we talk about how when we do orioki, everyone eats together and you have to finish pretty quickly. You know, you have only so much time to finish what's in your bowl, and it kind of goes down fast. And in our meal chant, we say this is medicine for nourishment of our practice. And how do you reconcile that with, you know, how you try to cook and flavor and add salt and spices and basically make a meal that tastes good or is enjoyable? How do you feel about, you know, enjoying what you're eating flavor wise versus, you know, the attitude in Zen of, you know, this is medicine and don't get too attached to it?
Well, I think that it's not just Zen, but the whole traditions that go, you know, be careful of the senses. But I think it's possible, you know, ease and enjoyment are two of the factors of mental one-pointedness, of, you know, absorption and mental, you know, concentration, samadhi, you know, ease and joy.
Sorry, Ed, could you speak up a little?
Okay, so I think that you know, ease and joy are two of the 5 factors of absorption. You know, what is it? Adhering, continuous adherence, concentration, and then ease and joy. So you actually need ease and joy for concentration. And as many spiritual traditions then are worried about the fact that you might have sensuous experience where you not only have joy, but you have greed or lust or some grasping. Enjoyment doesn't involve grasping, so to me, it's you're studying how to eat with enjoyment. And I think it's important, you know, that you, and I've been practicing for many years, and, you know, please enjoy your food. And the more you enjoy your food, then you notice when it's not enjoyable. And then you don't eat too much. And when you're in the Zendo and you're enjoying the food, you actually can eat, you end up eating less than you might otherwise because of the limited time. But because you've enjoyed it, you feel satisfied. And I think enjoyment is part of what makes the food satisfying and nourishing, aside from the particular kind of food or etc. So to me, the problem is not the sensuous quality of food, or, you know, you should just swallow it without tasting it. But the problem is, you know, is this, the study is how to be open to things, but then notice grasping or aversion, and the behaviors that you get involved with when you are no longer enjoying. So I have a chapter in my book about early on at Tassajara when we were making all this bread. We were making yeasted bread, and in those days we didn't have vegans, we had macrobiotics. And the Zen macrobiotics didn't want to have yeasted bread because in their world it was 2 yen, it's 2 yen. They had, the macrobiotics, of course, reversed yin and yang, and 2 yen meant it was too expansive. And usually that's considered to be the yang aspect, the expansiveness. But anyway, so then they wanted us to have also unyeasted bread. So we had yeasted bread, unyeasted bread, and we would serve baskets, and we would, each of us, you know, young men in their 20, 16 or 18 have homemade bread. It's a lot. And in order to eat that much in the period of time in Zendo, you had to concentrate on getting rid of what was in your mouth. And the more that you could get rid of what was in your mouth, in other words, swallow it, and the faster you could do that, the more that you could eat. And that seemed to be what was important. And so to me, it's more important to have a healthy relationship with your experience, receiving the food and tasting it and chewing it and enjoying it, than it is to have the right experience. I don't know, I go for the healthy experience. So to me, it's more healthy to enjoy, taste, savor, chew, and it was a big change for me. And then, you know, over the years, it took a while, but everyone began to change then from shifting from being greedy and trying to eat more, and we were all hungry. We were starved. But that's also Zen. You should have some problems, and see what you can find out when you have problems. But yeah, I'm in favor of taste, savor, enjoyment, and enjoyment again. One of the 5 factors of absorption, and Dogen, of course, in the Bukan Zazengi, he said, Zazen is the Dharma gate of ease and enjoyment. And ease, being at home in your body, in the world, in your heart. So that being at home here, and how to make yourself at home, how to make others at home. It's so important. And then, so being at home is more important than, and how to be at home means, you have a human experience, not that you have, you don't, and to me anyway, it doesn't make sense. Just to be sure you don't have greed, don't have the sensory experience. I don't think that's possible. I mean, you can do that, but I don't know. It's sort of like another way to abandon yourself.
I know you have cinnamon buns in the oven. Do you have time for one more question?
We went out shopping for those today, so they're not in the oven. Thank you, though, for the thought.
You mean you're having store?
Once I was lecturing here, I thought, oh, how could it be? Maybe we'll have some dry rye grapes.
I have to say, I'm a little shocked that you're having store-bought biscuits, but it completely blows my image. But anyone has one last question there? Okay, I have a question from home. It's a little more serious, and that's what it's about. It's from Lee, and he says, "Thank you, Reverend Brown, and you've seen a lot of Zen history in America from the '60s until now. What are the big changes you've seen, and how are we doing in the Zen world?"
Sometimes I feel that's actually the beginning of a poem, by Juan Ramon Jimenez. Sometimes I feel. So I'll tell you that poem first, and then we'll go on to the Zen thing. Sometimes I feel my ship has struck something deep beneath the surface, and nothing happens. Nothing. Silence. Waves. Nothing happens, or has everything happened? And we sit here calmly in the sometimes I'm reminded of a story that Jack Kornfield used to tell about how they were trying to figure out how to do Vipassana here in America, and people had different ideas. And then finally, I think they may have had to meet with a facilitator, and finally the facilitator said to them, let's ask, like if we have the conservatives, and we have the liberals, or we have the people who want, to have an established way to do it, and then we want to have the people who, or you can do it your own way, and whatever it is. And and in Zen, it's the same. If there's a group, and especially the bigger the group, then they're trying to do that Zen group. They're trying to do the real Zen. The real Zen. and like they're going to follow Suzuki Roshi's way. But of course, following Suzuki Roshi's way is following Suzuki Roshi in 1971. And they don't have the idea of still talking there with him about how he would do it today. So it's not clear what Suzuki Roshi would be doing today. But also he said, all I can teach you is the Zen I learned in Japan that I grew up with. That's all I know. So I'm going to teach you that. And here in America, then, you're going to figure out how to do American Zen and how to grow Zen here in America. But then there's some people who are like, they're trying to do Zen, like in Japan, and it's only Zen if you have the clothes, the Zendo, the cushions, that's Zen, but little by little, we're going to be doing American Zen, Mexican Zen, Ukrainian Zen. We're going to do Zen the way it fits in each of these places. And so this is all very interesting. And but what they found out, you see, as soon as you ask the one side to leave, now how much does the rest of you change? How much do you have to include? Now it's up to you to include that view. If they're not here, somebody should be carrying on the traditional way of practicing Zen. And if they're not doing it, oh, well, maybe I would have to do it then. So I say, thank you for carrying on your traditional Zen practice. So I can be out here being me. And then in my group and doing what I do. And, at my sessions, we do Qigong 3 times a day. Because I think just sitting, your energy just gets so stuck. So, but, I don't try to tell them you should all be doing Qigong. I know you're doing your traditional Zen. And I don't know what happened to Qigong and yoga in Japan, and the Chinese apparently had, Qigong, and they had movement practices in Tai Chi, Qigong, and so I do that, and I'm busy doing the Zen that I want to be doing, and I get to call it Zen because I've been authorized to. So, and Jindo has been busy authorizing people to, have their life be Zen, or the everyday life that they're living. This is the temple. This is, my life is the temple, my life, and I will, basic Zen, establish your core, in sitting.
Our Sangha is rigidly traditional. Isn't that right, everyone?
Rigidly, key word. That's, I don't know how traditional that is to be rigid.
I'm going to say thank you and let you get to your store-bought buns, cinnamon buns, this morning. I would like everyone to offer gasho to Eddie Bear Roshi. Elbows perfectly at 90 angles, please. At 90-degree angles, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
May we call you Eddie Bear Roshi? Is that all right?
Oh, you're the first. You're the first. I'm honored with your epitaph. Is that an epitaph? Yes.
Would you show the book one more time? And I believe you mentioned that if there was a link, if they write you directly, you will sign it for folks.
Yeah. If they go to the Peaceful City Sangha, there's a web store, and then they can email me, and I will sign it and send it out.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
And for the same price as Amazon. I include sales tax whether you're in California or not. Anyway, you're welcome. Thank you. So you can order it from me, or you can go to Amazon or Amazon.de, or wherever you are. Anyway, you know who to order books from, wherever you are. Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll say good morning, good night. So please come back again sometime with your next opportunity.
That's about, this book took 10 years, so, could be a while. We'll see.
Okay. Everybody give a wave. Waves. See you all later.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roshi.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.